Welcome to one of the most special stops in my OneLab Europe trip and one of the most personal videos in this series. Spa is special for every single of the OneLab Hero team. Both me, Gab, Sergio, Kostas, we all have beautiful memories from the place, and we all agree that it's one of the best racetracks in Europe, if not one of the best racetracks in the world. And I will try to explain you why without going to Wikipedia style information, stuff that you can find easily in a Google search. I will try to keep this more personal. I will try to tell you why Spa is special for me. And I have to tell you that I remember, like today, the first time that I've been to Spa. Actually, it was winter and there was even snow on the sides of the track. And I was walking in the pit lane, and in one of the boxes, I stopped and I saw like an F40 LM. And I said, like, do people really do track days with these things? And yes, it was there with a private owner. He went out, he actually drove quite hard. And it was a beautiful thing. And from then on, I've been to Spa almost once or twice every month for the last 7 years. And the machinery only kept getting crazier and crazier. I saw for the first time LaFerrari, a 918, McLaren P1, all this stuff before Top Gear, before you see them in Chris Harris' video at Portimao. I have actually seen these cars driven hard at Spa. And not only this, more unique stuff like the Koenigsegg 121 or the Pagani Huayra BC, Bugattis, modern McLarens like the Senna, and all the kind of stuff that you normally see in magazines. I consider myself lucky enough to have seen them alive, and it's the kind of metal that you see in most of the high-end track days at Spa. So instead of me speaking about all these cool things, I will actually show you a small clip of my experiences through the years, because I think video does a better job at describing all this cool stuff. So I have a small highlights clip here. I will let that play, and hopefully that conveys a little bit better the images that I'm talking about. And now imagine that what you just saw is only a tiny part of all the crazy things that I have seen in the last 7 years at Spa with RSR Spa. And it's a good time to get this out of the way, and I will explain my relationship with the company. And you know that we are very adamant about these things. Here at OneLab Heroes, we are not really trying to sell you anything. We're not trying to sell you OneLab Hero t-shirts or stickers. We're not trying to sell you products. And we never speak about our day jobs, and we never really try to connect these things. So what we do here is basically our passion, is where we actually burn money, not make money. And we don't make content for content, because we are not really a YouTube channel. So basically, we follow our passion. And when we think that there is something that you guys could benefit from, or someone could be inspired from, then we share a little bit of that. And when we do something that we think is funny, then we share that so you can actually laugh. Maybe with our misery, maybe with something funny that we did. But basically, it's quite important for us to clarify that this is not a business. However, since I drove Spa with RSR Spa, and since I have been basically with almost every organizer that does track days at Spa, from the very low end to the high end, I can honestly tell you that you should do Spa with RSR Spa. One of the main reasons that you should do Spa with RSR Spa is Ron Simons, the RS in RSR. He's the owner of the company, and I will tell you that I remember to this day my first track walk at Spa. I was actually walking up to Eau Rouge and sitting there at the top of one of the coolest corners in the F1 calendar and feeling the vibe of a very iconic place. I heard Ron say this, guys, welcome to the best racetrack in the world. And some people sort of disagreed, and for many people the Nürburgring is the best track in the world. And he kept on going, and he said, what is the most famous corner at the Nürburgring? And most people said the carousel, and it is the most characteristic one. But basically the carousel is like a second gear corner. You do 70, 80, on slicks maybe 90 kilometers per hour. But the most famous corners at Spa is Eau Rouge Radion, Pouhon, Blanchimont 1 and 2, and all of them are high-speed, high-risk corners. and you do minimum speed at Radeon, 160, 170, if you're fast 180 kilometers per hour. You know, that is the minimum speed in a very difficult corner with crazy elevation change at the top of it, with no room for error and an important straight after. So I could see his point. Some of the coolest corners in the world are in this formation that makes the modern version of Spa. And I will let him speak about his favorite track in the world, because I think he would do a better job than me or Sergio or Gab or any of us, because I know that his passion about Spa is real and the formation is really good. So this is a long one, but one that you might want to pay close attention to. Enjoy.
Okay, La Source, first corner of the Formula One track, and what you do is in fact you try to look at the signpost. There's the wall on the left goes away, and then you have to look left for the 100 and the 50 to find your turn-in point. With your, I think you look at that with your left eye. With your right eye, you look at the concrete wall on the right. That is what you almost wanna hit. So you want to make sure that you have that apex nailed, and you do quite a bit of a late turn in, so you can open the steering wheel from just even before the apex, and then be on full throttle even before the apex. The closer you are to the wall, the faster you're going to be. But you need to have the car on its toes. If the car is not light, if it's not alive, then it feels horrible, because the curbs are very rough on the inside. But you know, for a very quick lap time, you need to be very close to the inside, so almost touching the concrete wall. Then down the hill, there's in between La Source and the start of Eau Rouge, there's a little kink, a little right-hand kink. And again, it is a corner, and you should treat it like a corner, because if you just drive somewhere, you're gonna lose time. So you have to treat it as a corner, and you come very close to the right-hand side concrete wall, which is the pit lane wall of the endurance box. Hug the wall, the pit lane wall on the right, then let it track out a bit, and then you come back into the wall, and you go to the wall as late as possible, because it creates drag there. So you're gonna go back to the wall, back to the right-hand side concrete wall as late as possible until you're close to the marshal post, and at the marshal post, just before, let's say, 20, 30, 40 meters before you turn into the Eau Rouge. So the entry to the Eau Rouge is quite a firm turn in to the left, and you aim for the rumble strip, which is in fact the stream of the Eau Rouge is right there. That is underneath, and that is the lowest point there, and that is the compression. You want to be turning in, put the car straight before you go into the dip. Before you turn into the Eau Rouge, you settle the car on the brakes. Depends on what car you drive. Some cars are flat out, but I think most are not. So you have to come off the throttle a little bit, maybe brake a little bit before you turn into the left-hander. Then make sure that you put it straight when you go over that rumble strip, over the curbstone bit on the left. Then you have probably a firm brake, very short, but a firm brake before you go into the right-hander up the hill into the Radeon section. You know, what you do there is depending on your end speed on the main straight afterwards, already from there. So you turn in, you feed in throttle, and the more throttle you can feed in there, the better it is. Yeah? The lower speed is probably where you reach the right-hand side of the track, where you put the car straight before you go to the left-hand kink I'm talking about in a minute. But all that right-hand turn is where the track goes uphill, so there's a lot of vertical force on the car that makes any car turn better than it would have been if it would have been flat. So because of that elevation there, the car can do miracles, yeah? What it normally cannot do. So you turn in hard there into the right-hander, then you will see a crest there. You put it straight over that crest, and then the only thing you need to do is basically like not more, in any car, the input should be like this. And then you brush the left-hand side curb, which is on another crest, and track out all the way to the right-hand side of the track. That is in a nutshell Eau Rouge Rayon. Then we get to another corner, which you can easily not treat as a corner, which is the Camel Kink. In every car it's flat out, but it is how you take it flat out and how much track you use. You can shrub off quite a bit of speed there by, you know, not hitting the apex or you know, turning too much or you know, not using all the road on the exit. You really have to treat it as a corner, and when you treat it as a corner, it will flow in the same way as a normal 90-degree corner should flow. So be aware of Camel Kink as a real corner, especially in the wet. Then you get to Le Combe. Le Combe is where you in fact leave the old historic track and go into the section which they built in the early 90s. And it's basically a shortcut from just before Malmedy into after Stavelot. So it cuts straight through and connects the old back straight into Blanchimont with the Camel section. So Le Combe, right, left, right. There's two different ways to do this. In fact, also a bit depending on the car. You can go for maximum exit speed, or you can go for spending the least possible time in the complex. So first covering the least possible time in the complex. This is where you go in a little bit earlier, so you turn into the right-hander earlier. In that way you need more track on the exit, and you're probably going to use the curbs on the exit of the left-hander, and in that way you cannot make it all the way to the left for the final right-hander. This is where you're quicker in the first section, but you sacrifice the last corner. So the last corner, you don't come out of the last corner in the ideal way, so you suffer on exit speed after the last corner. Still, sometimes, depending on weather conditions, this is the way to go. The other way is to focus entirely on the highest exit speed. Now, there's a few tricks in this. And the first one is that you turn in a little later at first, and then you use all the curb on your left-hand side to make sure that you for sure get the car to the full left before the last corner. If you get the car to the full left before the last corner, then you can take that 100% ideal, you know, without looking at anything that happened before. But therefore you really need to be very aggressive on the curbs, almost, you know, using more curb than there is. You put, in fact, almost 4 wheels off the track there. In reality, you keep 2 wheels on the track, but the rest is all on the left. And in that way, you can straight line the whole section a bit, and in that way, the positioning of the car before the final corner is absolutely ideal. So again, there's also in this section, you go down the hill, it's called Bruxelles or Rivage 1, and there's two ways to do this, two extreme ways to do this, and everything in between, in fact. I'll give you the two extreme options. One is the classic line where you go deep into the corner, you turn around the car and aim for a high exit speed. That is number one. Number two is to go the shortest distance, so you spend the least possible time in the corner. That is number two. Let's go to number one. You position the car, let's say about 1 meter clear of the left-hand side of the track. You brake, and you just make sure that you just don't drive off the track towards the end of the corner. It is not difficult because there's not a gravel trap, but there's a concrete parking lot. So you can practice all you want, and you will never, you know, get into trouble. So you turn in and you aim for, on a 180-degree corner, you aim for 100 100 and, what is it, 3/4 round. That is where you hit the apex and then you accelerate out of the corner using all the road on the exit. All right. That is the classic way how we would do this corner if you can capitalize on a high exit speed. And this is the way you should do that when you start driving on Spa and driving this corner. That's number one, that's one extreme. The other extreme is where it's some sort of a banzai kamikaze approach where you go in too early and hope that you will, that the corner will spit you out in the end and you're still on track. It is where you go in, basically when the curbstone on the left starts, you already start turning in. And then it is like, it's like a V-shaped approach where you go in too early and then you rotate the car and do the same thing on the exit. Now this has a way lower mid-corner speed because of this, because you need to rotate the car. But you're going to be arriving at the mid-corner point so much earlier that you will not lose that time gained anymore. So you're going to go into hot, you make sure the car is on its toes and that it's light and that the rear will, on command will rotate you, and then you step on the gas again and you also hit that 3/4 round apex and accelerate out. And the other benefit of this is that you will not need all the exit space on the exit of the corner, because the car rotates. When it rotates nicely, you can keep the car more to the right hand side, because the next corner, Rivage 2 or Rivage, is a left-hander. So you want to be on the full right hand side, and System 2 helps you to achieve that. Rivage. Coming out of Brussels, it's always a fight to get the car all the way to the right before you turn into the left-hander, and the left-hander it's a medium, even slow to medium corner, but it's important because it's downhill. You're picking up speed very quickly, and it's a rather long straight downhill until we reach Pouhon, double gauche. So all the focus should be on maximum exit speed. It is downhill. There's a lot of camber. I think the difficulty of this corner, it's a bit blind. There's a nasty bump just before the exit, and there's an exit section you need to read, you need to look at, you need to think about, because there's a flat curb on the exit. There's a kind of an extension to the exit of the curb. And then there's this little, how do you call that, that bread roll to prevent people from even using more track. But when I drive it and I'm hitting this exit and the car is all everywhere on the limit on the exit, and you use all the road available, then you feel the speed coming out of the car, and then it works. When you're just stay within limits and stay on the curb or not using all the exit curb, then you sacrifice speed there. Coming into Pouhon, double gauche, the second big corner of Spa. The entry is, it always feels like it's, whoa, I'm gonna die, it's very fast, but you're not. The entry is maybe only 140 kilometers or way less than 100 miles an hour. It feels like, because you don't see where you're going, it's downhill, and you come out of a very fast section, but people brake a lot, and they get all the speed off, and therefore the entry is not any quicker than any normal medium fast bend. But then there's a lot of opportunity to get up to speed from the halfway mark and exit at 120 miles an hour with any car. I think the best tip I can give you is that you can see for yourself if you've done something right, and it is that if you turn in once, from the entry into the Pouhon, you turn in once, you hit the apex, you hit the halfway mark, which is a flat curb on the right hand side of the track, and then you feed in throttle and you maintain the same position on your steering wheel. And then you hit again the inside of the track, and at the end the car is, you know, is flying. There's a lot of centrifugal force in the car. And then you also hit the exit curb at the end, all the way down the hill, and then you put it straight. When that is happening and you're doing 110, 120 miles an hour, you did something right. Maybe a little bit about Pouhon. When you get it wrong, when you go into hot or you turn into early or both, what happens a lot, you know, then there's no need to panic, because there's a big parking lot on the exit, and you just need to make sure that don't try to hold the car at all cost on the track, because it could be that it first understeers and then you come off the throttle and the car oversteers and you lose it, because there's a big concrete wall on the left hand side just in the second section, and for sure you're gonna hit that. Yeah. So when you go into hot, open the wheel, leave the track, go on the parking lot, and then you know, calm down, relax, and then join the track again and go in for a coffee. Next corner, Fagnes. Pif Paf. So it's called Pif Paf because it's going Pif right and then Paf left. So Pif Paf. Key is a bit that you want to have the highest exit speed on the exit of the final left-hander, but by doing so you can also lose too much time in the section itself. So it's a bit of both. Yes, you need to sacrifice the first right-hander, but not completely, so you lose too much time. So it's a bit of the in-between. Still, exit speed counts, but also time in the complex. It's a later than you think entry. So where the curb is ending on your left, there you put it in. You have a late, because of that, have a late apex. And then one eye already should be aimed at the left-hand side, second part of the corner apex, and then hit that apex. Make sure on the exit that you don't run too wide, because the rumble strip there is quite nasty. And again, there's a concrete wall waiting for you on the left after the second corner. If you use data logging, you can exactly see what is the optimum between, you know, being too school-like and too much sacrificing in the section, and being too aggressive going into the left-hander too early and then losing time because your speed is down. So it's an optimum depending on your driving style, on the type of car, the conditions out there, etc., etc. But those are the two concepts. So concept one is where you sacrifice everything for highest exit speed. Concept two is spending the least possible time in the complex. Okay, Campus. A very simple 90-degree right-hander. It is banked. The curb on the inside you can use a bit, but some cars don't need to brake anymore in the final corner, which is Frère, so before you go on the back straight. When you don't need to brake anymore there, that means that this is getting a very critical corner, because it's all defining your exit speed on the end of the straight, which is, if Blanchimont would be flat out, which is all of a sudden the chicane before the Formula 1 track. So that is quite a bit of road there. So it is a absolute key corner for many cars. 90-degree, third gear. Don't go too late, because you need to have a bit of a swing in there, and you can use quite a bit of exit curb there. But There's no concrete parking lot there. There's a real gravel trap, so too much is too much, and you're into the gravel trap. Frère. So that is the corner close to the hospital. It is. If the previous corner, if Campus is not a key corner, then Frère is. So if you still need to lift off before you turn into the Frère, normally you don't need to brake into the Frère, but some cars need just a lift just before turn in and to get the nose in. If that is needed, then that means that this corner is the key corner of defining your exit speed. On the whole straight is key to your lap times. The most common mistake there is that people don't realize that the corner is opening up at the exit. So the exit speed can be way higher than what it can be at first when you look at it. You know, the information that it's almost flat should give you an idea that it's an absolutely very fast corner. Even if it looks like lower than medium speed on the entry, it's very fast. Yeah. I think Formula One is probably 200 kilometers an hour there, or maybe even higher. So we, in a Porsche GT3, you arrive at probably 140 or something, 145, 150. You need a little lift to get the nose in, and then full on the throttle, and on your exit it will be 170. So you gain speed through the whole corner, being on the throttle, being on full throttle already just after turn in, and that's what you need to aim for. So you turn in, full throttle. After Frère, there's a bit of going left, going right, and then you have the approach to Blanchimont, then you have the Blanchimont, and then there's a little kink to the right, and then you arrive at the bus stop. That whole section, in fact, is, you know, you could say, or you can think, it's not a real corner, so I can drive everywhere. No. There's still a distinct line of absolutely where you drive and where you position the car on the whole section, everywhere. There's various markers in there defining where you put the car in the wet, where you put the car in the dry. It's very difficult to talk about this, we need to show you, but remember, there's not various options. It's an option in the wet, there's an option in the dry. Let's talk about approach to Blanchimont. How you drive into the first Blanchimont, which is, it is a flat out section, but how you drive into that is going to be how you exit that first section, and where you exit that first section, and in what state the car is at the end of that first section. You can, for example, if you go into too late, then for the real Blanchimont, you know, find yourself not on the full right-hand side of the track. So in fact, you could drive to the right before the real Blanchimont. That is wrong. If you go in too early, then you know, you need already to fight the car at the section where you turn into the real Blanchimont. Also, that is not good. You know, it needs to be in a way that the turn-in point for the approach to the real Blanchimont needs to be in a way that coming out of the first part of Blanchimont, you will find yourself on the full right-hand side of the track, and depending on where if they allow you to use the green tarmac there or not, but you have to be on the full right-hand side of the track that is made available to you. And then the only thing you should need to do is to put the car straight, saddle on the brakes if needed, and then turn into the second Blanchimont. That transition for, you know, when the car is still very much loaded up, if you're in that left-hander, and you need to put the car straight, you need to come off the throttle, that is very difficult for any car. And it will get light and it will move around right at a point where, you know, you want a stable motor car to be able to turn into the second Blanchimont. It is very difficult for a street car with high, with high horsepower to get into that state at that corner. So it's a very difficult moment for any street car there to turn in. You can help a bit by not going flat out there, but we all want to go faster, so that's not an option. But it is tricky, it is difficult. In an ideal world, you come into the exit of Blanchimont 1 with a stable motor car, which is on the full right-hand side, which is ready to turn into the real Blanchimont, which is slower than the approach to Blanchimont. This corner, it's famous for people turning in too late, and which is an exception, because normally people turn in too early. Well, in this corner you always turn in too late because it's so blindingly fast. You're past your turn-in point already before you know it's there. Also not a problem at all, because there's a big parking lot on the exit which starts already before, where on the left-hand side is the apex, so there's a lot of runoff there. It's not foolproof, because on the left there's also a concrete wall. So if you panic and if you do something stupid, you can still, lose the car. But normally, nothing can happen. You have to be thinking ahead to make the entry and to make the apex. And it's quite a heavily banked corner. And the one thing I can give you is that as soon as you see a glimpse of the curb zone on the apex, so if you see 2 blocks of white red, then you go. And it's quite an aggressive, it should be quite an aggressive turn in, because it's you're traveling at 200 kilometers an hour, 120 miles an hour, and it needs a real positive turn in. If you turn in too weak, you will need the parking lot on the exit. You will not make it into the turn. You really need to firm turn it in. Hit the apex, don't run the curb. That's the end of everything. But you really go close to the curb zone. Make sure you hit that apex, and then you already start opening the wheel. And on the exit, it is, if the devil made this track, but it's on many places. There's a bump on the most, silly place on track here as well. So on the exit, just before the exit of Blanchimont 2. The track drops and the car gets light. So make sure that you have room for error there and open up the steering wheel. Use the exit curb. Again, there's AstroTurf there. You can even use that. Keep your foot down, because on the end of the AstroTurf, there's the concrete, there's the tarmac to save you. So keep on the throttle and ride it out. Again, it's a 120 mile an hour corner, so everything happens very, very fast. Great fun if you get it right. Out of Blanchimont, there's a little kink to the right with even a curbstone to show you, well, that's where you should go. And you should go there, so use that curb. Don't turn in aggressively, just make it a nice flowing line, because if you hit that curb coming out of the Blanchimont, you hit that curb, the car will flow very nicely to the full left, and that's where you want to be before the chicane, because the chicane is the right-left. Let the car go to the full left. There's even, I think there's 200, 150, I don't know, I think there's three signs. This is the most heavy braking zone on the track, because the speed into the chicane is the lowest one. So make sure you get that right. Again, there's a nasty bump in the braking zone. So if you don't have that, if your brakes are not that well, you just need to brake just before that nasty bump there. If your brakes are very good, you can brake after that nasty bump. Make sure you have the car on its toes, so it's rotating into the chicane. Because for sure, you want to absolutely sacrifice the right-hander, so you can rotate the car already and come onto the main straight, the Formula 1 straight, in an ideal way. So there you've completely sacrificed the first right-hander, so the final left-hander is taken ideal. What helps there is that there's a, you come into the right-hander chicane, then the track rises and it drops again. So it's a little crest which helps to rotate the car. Very technical, very, the track is very supportive. You will not, if you're not a complete novice, you will not have understeer there, but you can use that little crest to nicely rotate the car and rotate it again and come out. So that is, in a nutshell, the ideal line of Spa, which is of course one of the iconic tracks in Europe, or maybe in the whole world. What for me is so special about it is that I'm from here, so it's my back garden. It is, the scenery is so beautiful. It's embedded in the landscape, and the preparation of the track is true, Formula One. So everything is very posh and very, very clean. There's a lot of money running into it. The tarmac is beautifully prepared. The region here in Belgium is great hotels, great restaurants, great food. So what's not to like?
I hope you found the information interesting. I mentioned in the previous video in this zone that Ron actually drove my MX-5. I said he's a guy that has driven everything and anything. And you might think that I'm just saying this and it's an expression, but I want to clarify that he's a guy that has his roots in racing. He used to race Alfa Romeos in the 90s, transitioned to Ferraris. He has worked for OEMs, and he has done product testing for manufacturers that you for sure know. And he developed his own suspension kits for his 75s. He has instructed with Ferrari in 59XX and has done official events for Nissan. So when people would drive the facelifted Nissan GTR at Spa, that would be with Ron. And even back then with the original Nissan GTR at the ring. So basically, he comes from a very wide spectrum of cars, and he has driven things that you would not believe, from his old and trusty and rusty Alphas to multi-million euro Le Mans finishing classics that you would be afraid to even touch. And this is why I felt that he's the right person to tell you why this track is unique, to speak to you about all the intricacies of this track. And I left a bit more detail because I believe that there are many people that actually want to understand Spa and drive it properly, and I think that is a very good guide. Now from my standpoint, let's go a little bit to the track map, just because I want to talk you a little bit quickly through my lap, my personal lap. And I have to tell you that I was driving there basically to shake down my car for the UK trip. And as I was going there, it was like a beautiful afternoon in July, end of July, start of August. And I realized that I have never driven my MX-5 there. And it is a little bit because of what we discussed, this fixation about that perfect lap at the ring and always having the car ready at the ring. And although I'm at Spa often, I never really take the car there, or it wasn't working in the previous years. But I actually felt very bad that this would be like my first time to do that. And I arrived there a little bit like a beginner. And I found myself struggling a little bit because all these things, all this stuff that we say that make this track technical, when you try to apply them, you really, really feel it, why it's tricky. This track map is cool because, of course, you can see here the 7-kilometer current formation, but in this corner, you can also see the old 14-kilometer one, the one that goes around Malmedy and it includes the Mazda King, the legendary one. But let's talk about the 7-kilometer one because it's far from being simple. If anything, it's actually one of the most difficult tracks that I drove in this OneLab Europe trip. Approaching La Source, the first corner, I didn't really feel confident on my brakes. I sort of braked a little bit too early, common mistake in a way. And that actually meant that I lost quite a bit of time in the first part of the corner. Then when I realized that I'm actually going too slow in, I sort of released the brakes a little bit too early, so I still had a little bit more speed than I should. I did the correct line, but I had a bit more speed at the apex, so I could not really go back on power. I had a bit of understeer there. So basically, I managed to fuck both the first and the second part of the corner. And this 0.5 of a second actually become 0.6, 0.7. By the time you're at the Marshall post and about to turn to Eau Rouge, that small mistake is actually bigger. And the second problem that I had is I tried to do Eau Rouge Radion fast because it's a very satisfying thing. But at the same time, it's very counterintuitive because if you do Eau Rouge very fast, then you are going to compromise Radion and you're going to have a bad exit to the straight. So I did this for my first couple of sessions, and in this lap I tried to pull back a little bit, but I think I pulled back too much. So actually I'm going to Eau Rouge quite slow. I have a good exit out of Raidillon, but I'm going to Eau Rouge too slow. So quite a bit of time lost there. And basically with these two small mistakes, that is 1.2, 1.5 of a second lost, and cannot be recovered at any of the slow parts here, no matter how much you push and the car understeers or oversteers. And then going to Blanchimont 1 and 2, of course, the fastest corner of the track. I didn't really want to take any chances there, although you might think that is safe. I've actually seen cars being destroyed there, normally between Blanchimont 1 and 2. And I sort of took it easy, and I believe I lost like 0.5 of a second there as well. And basically 2-3 tiny mistakes, translate to a lap time that is like 2 seconds slower than what you would like, and maybe even a bit more. I would say that the representative pace for the car would be something in the 248, 249 area, but don't think for a minute that this was simple to do. I promised to myself to be back for a proper session, since, as I said, we're there almost every other month, but my OneLab Europe trip plans changed, and that couldn't materialize. So unfortunately, that is the one lap that I have, and it will do for now. And when I say this should be enough for now, don't think for a minute that this wasn't unique enough of an experience. Because you are basically almost alone in like a private track day, and the sun is setting, and you are enjoying not just any current F1 racetrack. You are enjoying a racetrack that has been driven by almost any important driver that has been alive in the last 90 years, 100 years. And you're there experiencing it, your small MX-5. And that by itself should do for a very unique memory. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned, because basically whatever follows from here on is interesting, is special in its own way, and you're going to understand a little bit how they're all going to come together. One could say that I kept the best for last, and he wouldn't be far from the truth. Stay safe and stay tuned. Up until the next one.